world can an iPhone app lead you to discovering a dead body? I'm sure all of you guys know what randonauting is at this point, but if you guys don't know, it's the world's first quantumly generated choose-your-own-adventure game. Essentially, the app uses a quantum number generator to give the user a random set of coordinates. You set your intention, which can be whatever, a color, something spooky, something cool, and then you pick if you want an attractor, a void, or an anomaly. Anomalies end up being the typical choice because they're the strongest out of the two. And then you are given your locations. The creators believe that it's more than just being this simple though. Setting your intentions actually gathers the coordinates. So it's an app that uses manifestation. This app took off on TikTok with the beginning of COVID. It gave people something to do that was outside and away from others. But if you search this right in the TikTok bar, you'll see how many negative experiences people have had. Warning others not to do it. One even saying that you are dealing with quantum manipulation and unnaturally changing the future. So what does this mean and how did it help solve a murder? Part 2 of the Randonautica app. So quantum manipulation. It's the power to control physics and particles. So this app showing these results may suggest that we're more empowered than what we think. And this ties back into simulation theory in the sense that we can kind of manipulate the world around us. On the other hand, it is possible that people are just more observant for what they're manifesting on the app. For example, if someone sets the intention for money, they may be more observant with finding a nickel on the ground. Either one you believe, it's hard to argue that the app doesn't have strange coincidences. I decided to reach out to a couple people whose videos stood out to me. This one girl, McKenna Ray, ended up setting her intention for death, and her set coordinates ended up leading her to a person who had just been shot. She was actually able to help him and call 911, but obviously never touched the app again after this. Another girl, Sam, released this video with her nephew and actually had an ongoing series. While she wanted to manifest something beautiful, she ended up coming across a guy throwing something off a cliff and then following her home late one night. And this is only the beginning of these experiences. Part 3 to the Randonautica app. So one of the scariest videos about this app came out on June 19th of 2020. A group of teens in Seattle, Washington were randonauting. Their location led them to Alki Beach in West Seattle. On the rocks next to the pier, there was a suitcase lying flat. And it pretty much seemed like the coordinates were directly at it. So they walked over and opened it up, documenting the whole thing for TikTok. And they all state just how bad it smells. They think that maybe there's a body or spoiled food inside. So they call the cops and the cops take 3 hours to get there. And it ends up being the remains of another person. And if I'm being totally honest with you guys, I did not think this was real at all. During this time, there was a lot of videos about this app that were totally staged. But one Google search and you could find that this case was actually real. And not a lot of people kept up with it past this viral TikTok video. But a little later, more remains were found. The victim had been cut up and different body parts were placed into different bags. And it wasn't discovered till even more later that it was actually 2 victims. This is the case of Jessica and Austin. Part 4 to the Randonautica app. So now we're going to talk about the case of Austin Winter and Jessica Lewis. They were a couple who had been together for 8 years. They had a very strong relationship, and family members talked about how many tough times they had gotten through together. Jessica, who was 35, was described as a ray of sunshine, smiley, happy. She worked with adults with disabilities and was a mom of 4. Austin, who was 24, was described as caring, friendly, and loved music. When their bodies were examined for cause of death, they found out that they had been shot and then dismembered after. And on August 19th of 2020, it was discovered that their landlord had killed them. Michael Lee Dudley was charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. After having a huge argument with them on June 9th, trying to get them to move out because he wasn't happy with his tenants anymore, he made the decision to commit murder. His ex-girlfriend ended up speaking out about his angry side and abusive past. The video was removed from TikTok out of respect to the parents, but they were very thankful to the teenagers for finding their bodies and drawing attention to the case. If you guys want to hear about my own personal experience with the app, I'll have it on my middle tab on my Instagram Reels.
Storytime. Thank you, Tiffany, for sending me the story. So Tiffany and her sister were at the beach facing away from the water, and it was getting dark, the tide was coming in, and they heard these crying noises that kind of sounded like they were coming from the ocean. So they called the police, to make sure everything's okay. So the police show up, they check everywhere, and they don't find anything. So they send out boats to go out even further just in case somebody's all the way out there. So this started late at night, but this was a party night, so this went all the way till 6 a.m. and everybody had pretty much left. Tiffany and her sister had stayed a little bit longer, and right then comes a woman running out of the alleyway from the nightclub area. She's visibly upset, completely drenched in water as if she had gone swimming. And so Tiffany kind of finds this weird, so she calls the police again. And right as that happens, the girl runs onto the pier and jumps off. Tiffany and her sister are freaking out. The police boats and everything show up and they send them home. A few days later, the police contact Tiffany and ask to meet up so they can ask questions about that night. So the police told Tiffany that the crying came from the woman that was jumping off the pier. She had done this multiple times that night, swimming far out so that the current and the rough waters could drag her under and kill her. Story is not over by any means yet. Part 2 is coming right now. Part 2 of the lady jumping off of the pier. So she was jumping off trying to swim out really far so that the rough waters and the current could drag her under and kill her. She just didn't want to live anymore. The police told Tiffany that then 2 hours later she was found on a different pier trying to do the same thing. Thankfully, the police got to her in time and took her away to a hospital where she can get the help that she needs. Tiffany witnessed this and everything, and this all happened 5 years ago. And so recently, right before COVID, Tiffany gets on a bus and she sits down. And she looks up, and sitting right across from her is the same lady. And she's there with 2 little kids, and she recognizes Tiffany. And she tells her more about that night and how she was going through a really bad relationship. She was having a really hard time and she just wanted to end it all. But there she sat, now married with 2 beautiful little girls, and she tells Tiffany that if it wasn't for her calling the police, that she would have died, not knowing her future. I love this story. I'm so glad that Tiffany sent it to me, not to be cheesy, but I think that this is a very strong message for people who are going through a really rough time. I promise you it will get better. There is a future waiting for you, and if this isn't proof, then I don't know what is.
Am I the asshole for waxing my 5-year-old daughter's unibrow? So my 5-year-old has a pretty thick dark unibrow that is very noticeable. Because of COVID, her preschool was online, therefore she was never bullied for having it. However, this past summer, her cousins came over to visit and many of them teased her for her unibrow. They'd call her countless names, and at just 5 years old, my daughter already thinks she is ugly. It breaks my heart because nobody, let alone a 5-year-old, should think they are ugly. I reassure my daughter she's beautiful and not to listen to her cousins, but my daughter still believes she is ugly. In a week, she is starting kindergarten, and I really do not want the bullying to get worse there. So yesterday, I took it in my hands to wax her unibrow. I didn't shape them or anything, just waxed the middle off to get rid of her unibrow. My daughter was elated, looking in the mirror and calling herself so pretty. It warmed my heart to see her so confident in herself, but I made sure to remind her she was beautiful both ways. When my husband came home, my daughter was so excited to show him her eyebrows. In front of her, he called her beautiful, but after she left, we had a huge fight. He said it was horrible of me to be subjecting my 5-year-old daughter to beauty standards. And at such a young age, I'm pushing it on her instead of telling her she is beautiful the way she is. And no 5-year-old should be waxing their eyebrows, and I'm pushing the mentality that she is only beautiful without her unibrow. And that my daughter is too young to know what she even wants, and she should have been able to make her decision to wax it off when she is old enough. I truly understand all the points he has made. However, my daughter has told me she wants to get rid of her unibrow, and I didn't want her to grow up with the bullying and teasing and blame me because I could have prevented it. So, am I the asshole for waxing her unibrow?
Stop right now, you have to watch this movie. One day I was scrolling through Netflix trying to find a movie to watch, which is why I'm here to help you not do that, and Murder Mystery came across my page and it's so funny. So Audrey and Nick are married, and Audrey's always wanted to go to Europe, but they can't really afford it. So one day they're on a plane and they meet this guy named Charles Cavendish, who invites them on his yacht, where they will be celebrating Charles's elderly uncle's upcoming wedding to Charles's ex-fiancée. On the yacht, in front of his entire family, Audrey and Nick, his uncle announces that he will be leaving all of his money to his new wife. Right then, he pulls out his will and is about to sign all of his money away to his new wife when the lights go out. Then they come back on and he's dead, of course. So they're all stuck on a boat together trying to find out who murdered this man. Nick and Audrey just met everybody, and now they're being framed for this billionaire's murder. Everyone's trying to figure out who did it. And it's so funny. And it's plot twist after plot twist. I highly suggest you go watch it if you want to. It's on Netflix. Storytime. As a person who literally has a fear of vomit, I get a lot of vomit stories in my DMs. Anyways, a guy named Henry sent me this. It's really disgusting but really funny. So Henry lived in Canada. He was in 4th grade and his class went to go play on the soccer fields for this tournament thing. It was one of those parks with like soccer fields, baseball fields, and it had an ice rink in the middle of it because, you know, Canada. And you know, they were in 4th grade. Nobody really cared who was winning. Everybody was just picking their noses. Not that I did that when I was in 4th grade. And his classmate Ashley was the only person that was trying to score a goal. And they were on a hill, and I guess she was trying really, really hard because she fell and rolled off of the hill in a really awkward position, and when she landed, her bone was like sticking out of her body. So his classmates at the top of the hill saw it, and a few of them like puked all over the grass. So his teachers saw it and they were like, oh my god, and they run down the hill and they help her up and they start walking up the hill. But the vomit was like sliding down the hill, and they didn't know, and they all slipped in it and started falling down the hill with the girl, just covered in the girl's vomit. Anyways, they were missing a player for the rest of the day, and her wound got infected.